Hare Krishna, nice to see you all. Welcome. As we continue the wonderful journey through Karma Yoga. So today we are going to cover slokas 3.32 to 3.35. When you are ready, I will start playing.
ये त्वेतदभ्यसूयन्तो नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढास्तान् विद्धि नष्टान चेतसः सदृशं चेष्टते स्वास्याः प्रकृतेर्ज्ञानवानपि प्रकृतिं यान्ति भूतानि निग्रहः किं करिष्यति इन्द्रियस्येन्द्रियस्यार्थे रागद्वेषौ व्यवस्थितौ तयोर्नवशमागच्छेतौ ह्यस्य परिपन्थिनौ श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वधर्मे निधनं श्रेयः परधर्मो भयावहः.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So as I said in the group, these are some very powerful set of slokas, and I think they will definitely make a huge impact on our lives. So if you remember, in the previous slokas, Krishna had made a promise. He said that those who follow his teachings on Karma Yoga with Shraddha and without any envy, he had said that they will become free from bondage. Everybody remembers that, hopefully, correct. And that was the very encouraging side from Krishna. But now in 3.32, he's turning to the other side. And this is where things get a little uncomfortable. I told you last time also that sometimes spiritual teachings, they feel fine as long as they are given at a distance. But when they start becoming a little personal, that is when they get a little uncomfortable. So here, Shri Krishna, he is kind of getting into that side now. So he is telling Arjuna, he is no longer gentle now, okay? So see how his tone changes. So now he tells Arjuna, Arjuna, Etu etat abhyasu yanto. He is saying, but those who criticize or find fault with this teaching of mine, na anutishtanti. He says, who do not practice this teaching of mine, what happens to them? See, again, very strong language. He's saying, sarva jnana vimudhantan. They become deluded in all spheres of knowledge. And viddhi nashtan. Know them to be ruined. Achetasaha. Those who are without discernment. See, these are not mild words. These are strong words, powerful words. And he's saying that such people, they totally get ruined without any awareness. And the other very powerful thing he says is, any kind of knowledge that they think they have, even that gets covered in ignorance. So the strength of this language, why Krishna is using this strong language, is itself telling us something very important. And see, I always say, I know it may feel a little uncomfortable, but if possible, can all the satsang members turn their cameras on? I mean, this is a satsang and let's try to make the most of it. Okay, this is a golden opportunity. These opportunities won't come. You will miss it only once it is gone. Then we will all miss it. So Shri Krishna is using this strong language to coach Arjuna, and it is telling us, it is to give an idea of what is at stake here. It's not just a philosophical disagreement. It is the entire direction and destiny of a human life. And that is the word that unlocks a deeper meaning. He says, Abhyasu antaha. That is basically the quality of criticizing and finding fault. See, it's not the same as sincere questioning. Krishna will never discourage questioning, but Krishna is saying this fault-finding nature is what is the biggest enemy. Very specific kind of fault finding. This is the inner voice. Some of you may have felt like this. This is the inner voice that says, who is he to tell me? Or why should I, follow that teaching? I want to do my own thing. Or why should I surrender to anybody? But what happens is, this is prayer, because it makes us feel like we are in control. It makes us feel like we are powerful, but it makes us feel like it's very comfortable, but it is not. It is actually the ego which is trying to defend its territory. And then Krishna is making it very clear. He's saying, if you let that ego win, he's saying, Arjuna, if you let that ego win, if you let that ahankara win, then that victory is not going to give you freedom. That victory is only going to give you delusion and bondage. There was a Hindi movie, you may all remember it. It came many years ago. मैं वो बाजीगर हूँ जो हार कर भी जीत जाता हूँ. So here Krishna is saying, whenever we let our ahankara win, Krishna says, when ahankar wins, it is not really a victory, and that victory is not going to give you freedom. This is a lesson for all of us, because in material world, it is exact opposite the way we live our lives. Every time we think we have got an upper hand, every time we think we win an argument, every time we think we have outsmarted somebody else, don't we feel good? And that is the ahankara winning. So we have to be very, very careful here. It's very relevant, because in this world today, this world, modern world, we celebrate questioning. Questioning everything. And questioning that comes from genuine curiosity and humility, that is always good. But then the questioning that comes from ego, the questioning that comes from ahankara, that is the kind of questioning Krishna is talking about here. Because what happens is, there may be an entire mountain of wisdom in front of us, but we will find faults. We will pick that one thing that seems off. We will pick that one thing that you think you don't agree with, and then you will reject this entire mountain. We all do that, no? So that is the problem. And Krishna, pretty much what Krishna is saying is, this quality that he is describing is the opposite of Shraddha. So when we say Shraddha, that is the opposite of this kind of fault finding. Shraddha means, even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it feels like maybe I don't understand, can you accept? If you can, that means you are willing to keep your ego on the side. And that is what is Shraddha basically. And if you don't do it, then that is this particular thing Krishna is talking about. Is Shraddha blind belief? No, Shraddha is not blind belief. It is Shraddha is basically when you let grace enter. When you're willing to keep your pride aside, and when you're willing to let grace enter, that is a function of Shraddha. Without Shraddha, that cannot happen. And what destroys Shraddha? The same old friend, pride. Pride comes and hurts us in all the places. What Krishna is saying is, if somebody has never encountered a real teaching, that is different. That person just does not know. But if somebody who encounters, but then feels threatened by it, and then dismisses it out of ego. For example, some saint may come and tell you that, I'm giving a very simple example, but this applies to deep topics also. Some saint may come and tell that, drinking alcohol is not good. And somebody who is fond of alcohol feels threatened immediately. And then what happens? They will just reject that whole teaching. They will find, in fact, instead of opening up and acknowledging, they will find fault with that teaching. And that is where you have all these statements like, life is meant to be enjoyed. And that is where now the ego, the ahankara, is trying to make up all stories. It is trying to find fault in the teaching. And Krishna is saying, if you give in to that, then you are going to end up completely deluded. And those who are deluded, they are going to get destroyed, ruined. So please take down this Upanishad. It is called as both. In some places they call it Mundaka Upanishad, in some places they call it Mandukya Upanishad. It's the same thing. 1.2.12. If I have to quickly explain that Upanishad, that sloka says that having examined the worlds attained through karma, let the seeker arrive at dispassion. For that which is eternal cannot be gained through action alone. So at some point, the seeker has to move beyond mere intellectual analysis and they have to open up for grace. And it requires trust, it requires willingness to let go of this pride and ego. So because without that willingness, you're always going to be on the surface. We will always be collecting information, but we will never get transformed by it. Even now, a lot of people, they will just tell me, Guruji, can you share recordings? I tell them, you don't need my recordings. There are thousands and thousands of recordings available. Is there any shortage in the world today of any kind of spiritual knowledge? No, but do we see everybody feeling spiritually evolved? No, then it's a logical question. You have to ask then what is missing? What is the gap? If knowledge is unlimited, if knowledge is ever ready, it is always accessible today. You can listen to Vivekananda, you can listen to Mukundananda, Sarvapriyananda, whatever you want. You just flip your fingers and that teaching is available. Ramakrishna, all the Ramakrishna's gospels are online. You can just go and get it right away. But will that make you a Vivekananda? And then you have to use your Viveka, the same intellect that does fault finding. Use the same intellect to ask, if I have received the same teaching that Vivekananda received, why is it that he became Vivekananda but I didn't? That is the same question that Ananda asked Buddha. Ananda said, Buddha, I served you for 25 years. I was so close to you. So why have I not become spiritually elevated, although there are other people who have become elevated? So that is a very logical question. So Krishna is not talking some abstract philosophy. What Krishna is talking is very real, very practical. So we have to understand. That is one of the reasons we keep insisting on a satsanga where, I will try to do a better job. I'm going to ask you all for some tips and some hints on how we can make our satsanga even more involved but we will do that. We will have some exercises, some activities so that it becomes more of a satsanga. But that is one of the power of the satsanga and learning in a satsanga. So he is talking about a spiritual danger. He is saying that when such abhyasuya and intellectual pride, they close the door to shraddha, and then that person becomes vimuda, deluded. Because whenever ego sits on the seat of knowledge, it will always pass wrong judgments. And then in 3.33, Krishna is shifting the conversation. It may seem surprising what he's doing here. He's saying, Sadrisham cheshtate swasyaha prakriter jnanavanapi. I'm going slow so that every word can land, every word can be heard, because this is important for all of us. He's saying that even a person of knowledge, they act in accordance with their own inner nature. Prakritim yanti bhutani. All living beings follow their own natural tendencies. And then he's asking a pointed question. Nigraha kim karishyati? He's asking, what can mere repression accomplish? Repression means you are forcing something. You are controlling by force. He's saying, what can such accomplish? See, it's a very remarkable thing to say. It may sound like Krishna is saying, well, everyone follows their nature anyway, inner nature. So what is the point of making an effort? This is the most common question that keeps coming up. But that's not the meaning at all. What Krishna is doing here is he's acknowledging a deep truth about human psychology. He's saying that our conditioning, now pay attention here because this is where it applies to all of us. What he's saying is our conditioning, our sanskaras, our accumulated tendencies from this life and the lives before, these are not small things, they are very powerful forces. They shape how we think, they shape what we are drawn to, they shape what repels us, what attracts us, and they also shape how we respond to what is happening around us. So even somebody with genuine knowledge, Jnanavan, someone who has studied and reflected deeply, even they will feel pulled by these currents, by these forces. That is the example we took earlier. We said, something as simple as a small little puppy dog running towards you. But how come two people react very differently to the same thing? Because if you intellectualize what is happening is the same thing, then how do you explain the drastically different responses? So this is what Krishna is trying to say. This is a very simple example, but how you react to life situations, how you react to challenges, how you react to suggestions, how you react to Guru's words, how you react to Krishna's teachings, all of that is not just your wisdom. It's not just based on your knowledge. It is based on so many other forces that are acting. And that is Krishna's very strong message. Because that is why many times we understand what is the right thing, we even agree with it, but then we go back to doing the same things that we are not supposed to do. Hota hai ki nahi hota hai? No? Like we keep talking about vikaras. I'm sure that everybody in this group knows what vikaras are. If somebody doesn't know, you can raise your hands. But everybody knows. And they will all say kama, krodha, moha, matsarya, lobha. Ratta mara hai humne. But are we able to, in real life, होता है क्या? जहां पे काम होना है काम होता है. Wherever there is supposed to be krodha comes. Moha comes, lobha comes. So the question is, if knowledge is there, then why is our reactions not aligned with knowledge? That we have to introspect. It's a very logical question we have to ask. If someone doesn't even know, that is a different thing altogether. If someone doesn't even know that, for example, greed is bad, okay, that's a totally different situation. But someone who has studied 100 times that greed is bad, when they still find themselves being greedy, they have to ask this important question. I have the knowledge, but then why is my reaction not aligned with my knowledge? If you ask that question, then the answer is in Krishna's message here. Here Krishna is saying, that's your inner nature. Inner nature pretty much means all of these things. Sanskaras, your conditioning, your past birth, memories. So many forces are in action. Very, very important thing, isn't it? So Krishna's answer is both compassionate and also honest. He is saying that Prakriti is very powerful because all of this is Prakriti, right? And all these accumulated forces, Vedanta calls it vasana. And these vasanas, they don't disappear just because you studied some book or you listened to some bhajans, and it doesn't just go away like that. Knowledge alone is not enough to overcome all these deeply ingrained patterns. And he says, nigraha, you cannot force it either. So like, for example, if you are somebody, the best example is, somebody who is given to anxiety. Somebody who keeps feeling anxious about things. Will it work if that person tries to force and say, from tomorrow I'm not going to feel anxious? Then you're going to feel anxious about that. I am not supposed to feel anxious. So Krishna is saying force is not going to help. So then what will help? Krishna is saying what will help is if you understand what is the root cause. And if you can try to understand and work on it. See, the example is a spring. You have all seen a spring, right? Imagine a very strong, powerful spring. Now, what happens if you try to push it hard with one hand? Okay, the spring is suppressed, but how long? Somewhere your hand is going to get tired. The moment you leave your hand, the spring is going to bounce back 10 times higher. So Krishna is saying our inner nature is like that. You cannot try to repress it. You cannot try to just suppress it with force. That's never going to work. So, some of you are nodding your head, so I'm sure you have tried it. Because that is the problem. What happens? People think spirituality means they will wear a different kind of clothes, or they will talk differently, or they're all external. And you cannot force spirituality that way. So we have to acknowledge the power of Prakriti, and it is not about denial, but it's about awareness. That is why Krishna will keep saying, be mindful, being aware, being patient, and being consistent. So you have to gradually redirect these forces towards something higher. So in the scriptures, what they say, for example, if you are given to anger, what they say is, don't try to force and say, now I'm going to control this anger. It's not going to work. So the scripture says that anger is approved if it is directed to God. So if you feel yourself getting angry all the time, get angry at God. God can handle it. Don't get angry at your poor partner or your poor child or your friends. The point is, you don't have to control forcefully that anger. You can redirect. So what does it mean, redirect to God? That means, in the beginning stages, you can just look at the God's photo and get angry. But what it actually means is, get angry at the fact that you are not growing closer to God, or you are not feeling that love for God, and let anger be directed in those places. Just like that, if you are greedy, you are not able to control the greed, then direct the greed towards God. Say, I want to hear more bhajans. I want to, spend more time near God. I want to hear more of His stories. I want to have more of satsanga. That's okay. So the scriptures will approve. The point here is, when you consistently redirect, that is one of the most effective ways to take care of your inner nature. Otherwise, you cannot force it, and if you ignore it, the inner nature will always overpower your reactions, your decisions in life. Any questions? Does it make sense? I know it's slightly kind of a loaded, powerful teaching here. Yes, we have Someji, you had a question.
Yeah, Guruji, so this, I'm talking in terms of response and reaction, right? So a lot of times whenever krodha comes, I have realized कि krodha generally वो भी ego driven ही होता है, right? कि मेरे बच्चे ने मेरी बात नहीं मानी, अब मैं जबरदस्ती लगा रहूंगा उसके पीछे, right? तो the thing is कि अब जब reaction आता है, तो there are two types of ways to handle it. One is I catch it and I'm like, no, I shouldn't be angry because it will not serve the ultimate purpose. Second kind of response is that I'm internally so blissful. I have embraced Krishna in a way that I'm like, yes, it's accepted. And then the response comes. So जो ये first type का restraint वाला है, that is some sort of मिथ्याचारी attitude. नहीं तो मतलब how do I get from this stage to the blissful stage?
Yeah, good question. Excellent question. So that's where the science of anger comes. So anger is strongly related to attachment. That is one of the reasons why most scriptures, they talk about vairagyam as being very important. Because something you expected did not happen, or something you did not expect happened. These are the two situations where you will get angry. What is the third natural situation? Lust. When you are given to lust, and if you cannot fulfill that lust, it will result in anger. But that is the same thing again. Lust means something you expect, and that does not happen, you get angry, right? So the root cause of anger is attachment. And that is why Krishna very strongly keeps repeating this need for not having attachments. That is why even in Karmanyavadikaraste, he talks about don't be attached. Because that attachment will cause krodha. And then we have that entire chart, if you remember. Who remembers that chart by any chance? Somebody remembers? We had the chart where we said, okay, I think Sulataji remembers. Ashaji also remembers. Yes, Ashaji?
Yeah, it's like sensory objects leads to attachment, which leads to anger, then loss of memory and
Yes.
intelligence.
Yes, Smriti Vibramma and then Pranashyati at the end. When memory loss happens, game over. Excellent, thank you. That is the same thing, Soumyaji. So if you look at that, the science of the mind, Krishna said, it all starts when you contemplate on. Of course, your answer is somewhere in the middle. So Krishna says, when you contemplate on sensory objects, you develop attachment. When you develop attachment, it grows strong, it becomes lust, and so on and so forth. And because the lust is strong, you are not able to fulfill it, you are not able to get it, it turns into anger. And when you are always angry, it impacts your memory. And then when it impacts your memory, your intelligence goes for a toss, and that's it. Pranashyati. So, why I am talking about this chart is, the root cause of anger is always attachment. So when you said the second way of handling it, the second way is not to handle anger directly. The second way is handling attachment. Because if you're always thinking of Krishna, if you're always contemplating on his teachings, you are replacing your attachments with that. And once you have lesser and lesser attachments, then the scope for anger becomes lesser and lesser. No, that is the whole point. So I hope that makes sense. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So that is exactly the question that usually comes, and you should ask that question. The question is, if Prakriti is powerful and if forcing does not work, then what are we supposed to do? So Soumyaji's question is the question that Krishna already anticipates. That somebody will ask, if I am not supposed to force my anger, or if I am not supposed to force my greed and all of that, then what am I supposed to do? And that is where Krishna goes to 3.34. And Krishna says, is identifying the precise location of the problem. So Soumyaji, this answer may also be enlightening to you and anyone else who had a similar question. Here Krishna says, I will go slow again. Indriyasya indriyasyarte. In the relationship between each sense and its sense objects. This is a very powerful teaching. So please try to, at least for the next 5 minutes, let's see if you can have 100% focus here. Because it will help you. It will really help your life. It will transform your life. This one teaching, if it can be internalized. So he's saying the relationship between the sense and its sense object. And then he says, rāga dveṣa vyavastitau. Rāga is attachment, dveṣa is aversion. So he's saying attachment and aversion are firmly seated, and he gives a very clear warning. Tayor na vasam agachet. One should never come under their control. Tau hi asya paripantinau. For they are one's enemies, one's waylayers. The answer to all the problems, the mind problems, is here in this shloka. So you can take down this shloka 3.34 and see if you can revise it. My notes I will definitely send. But this, in my humble opinion, this is one of the most practical shlokas in Karma Yoga chapter, which needs to be internalized, introspected, and we can work on it. It is very practical. It's very easy to work on it. So Krishna is giving a very precise teaching. He's not talking in vague terms. He's not talking abstract philosophy. He's pinpointing the exact mechanism by which we lose our inner freedom. What is he saying? He's saying every sense is impacted by the corresponding set of sense objects. That seems very logical, isn't it? Like, for example, eyes are drawn to something beautiful. The nose is drawn to something that smells good. our feeling of touch, something soft, we are drawn towards that. This is so beautiful. This space between the sense and the sense object. So there is a sense object and you have your sense. The space between them is where raga and dveṣa, they take birth. So, like you have eyes and the eyes are looking at something. Now you either get attracted to it or you get repelled by it. 99.99% this is exactly what happens. Unless we are not even paying attention. Sometimes they say the difference between looking and seeing. You are so busy thinking something that somebody goes in front of you. Your eyes have seen, but it's not registered. We are not talking about that. We are saying when in reality, when the sense and sense objects, when they are in contact, at that time, it can either result in raga or it will result in dveṣa. Raga means you will want to run towards it. Dveṣa means you want to run away from it. But in the end, net, what is happening? Running. And the important things to notice is, Krishna is not saying you have to eliminate the sense objects. That is not the solution. Some other teachings, some other scriptures, they will talk about eliminating sense objects. That's not Krishna's philosophy at all. He's not saying, close your eyes. He's not saying, plug your ears. That's not the teaching. Nor is he saying, get rid of all beautiful things, cover all beautiful things. That's not the teaching either. So he says the problem is neither in the senses nor in the sense objects. Then what is he asking us to do? He's saying you have to develop your inner awareness first. Someji, your first question, the first part of your question. That awareness is important. If you don't even realize that raga or dveṣa is now taking control, then they are already in control. So the point is we have to at least be very aware, very mindful, and you have to recognize the moment raga arises or the moment dveṣa arises. So Krishna is saying that there is time. The way this science works, the way this mechanism of this mind-body works, he says that there is a gap between the senses and the sense objects. And in that gap, before raga or dveṣa arises, your awareness can arise. Your awareness can get in before raga takes control or dveṣa takes control. This is what was the first pragma, where we said you have to catch the inner saboteur. Pretty much all we said there was, you have to be mindful, you have to be aware. That is extremely important. So Krishna says, once you become aware of it, that is the beginning. That is the beginning of overcoming the forces of raga and dveṣa. Because once you are aware, then you can do everything else that we discussed about. Then you can replace, then you can, redirect, and all of that will happen. I would pretty much say this is the heart of Karma Yoga, because if I have to oversimplify it, all Krishna is saying in Karma Yoga, in this part of Karma Yoga is, if it is raga means you are running towards, if it is dveṣa means you are running against, net you are running. And if you are always running, how can you focus on that which is important? How can you focus on that which is truly the truth? Because you are so busy running. Has anybody here been able to meditate while they are running? I mean, that takes special skills, but because that is pretty much the message here. And can you just say that no more raga, or can you say that I will have no more dveṣa? That's also not going to work. Krishna is saying, can you be mindful? Can you be aware? That is a step one. You have to really introspect this, because this is not a philosophical discussion. It's a very practical. These are the forces that are shaping our entire life, emotional life. So very, very important, because if you see, how it impacts us in our real life. Rāga. I'll give some examples, right? Relationships. There are relationships that are hurtful, and we keep going back to the same relationship. Why? Because at some time, somewhere, something felt good, and you developed rāga, attachment, without even realizing that you have developed that attachment. And that will keep dragging you back. And you will be astonished. You will ask yourself, why do I keep getting into the same hurtful relationship? This is the mechanism Krishna is talking about here. This is why, for example, we are checking our phones like 1,000,000 times a day. Because every notification, it gives us some approval. Oh, maybe somebody remembered me. Maybe somebody hit a like button. Maybe somebody this, somebody this. That is rāga. We don't realize. We will justify. I've seen people what if it is important? What if somebody needs me? Very, very wonderful. If somebody really needs you, they will call. Right? But this is how the ahankara works. The ahankara will not let you acknowledge that you are becoming a victim of rāga. As I'm saying, these teachings are very relevant to I can endlessly go on endless examples, but I hope you're getting the point. Dveṣa, on the other hand, how many of us have tried to avoid difficult discussions, difficult conversations? I see a lot of smiling faces, yes, and people are raising their hands too. That is dveṣa. Because we want to avoid a confrontation. Dveṣa. See, just avoiding a difficult discussion, does it take care of the root cause? Does it take care of the problem? The problem sometimes gets bigger. Why do we procrastinate? Procrastination, that is why you will be very surprised. Krishna will clearly call it out as a vikara. It is not a virtue. It may feel very innocent. Oh, all I'm doing is I'm saying I will do tomorrow. What is harm in that? But Krishna will say that is also a vikara. Because procrastination is dveṣa again. You are avoiding. And avoidance of rightful action is almost a sin in Krishna's philosophy. No, but why we avoid dveṣa? We have not even realized, but aversion has taken control and we don't even know. That is what is driving us away from so many things. It is very different from you avoiding something based on viveka. For example, you should not touch fire. That is viveka. And that viveka is what Krishna is saying has to be sharpened. So that you get into awareness before rāga and dveṣa take control. It's a very scientific, very practical teaching. And Krishna says many times, discomfort is the gateway to something bigger. Like when you go to a gym, when you lift weights more than what you are comfortable with, that is when you start building muscles. So the discomfort there is required. But instead, if you give in to comfort all the time, then you are not going to grow either. Krishna's teaching here is so psychologically honest. He's not asking us to pretend that, one day I've seen people say that, give me some time. I said, okay, but why do you need that time for? Like, what's going to happen in time? They say, in some time, I will stop being impacted by attachments. Is it really going to happen like that? We cannot pretend that somehow we are going to automatically become immune, because rāga and dveṣa, they are like constantly there. They never take a break. Prakriti never takes a break. And that is why we have to be consistent all the time. And that is why Krishna calls rāga and dveṣa, they are the enemies. And they are always waiting to take you astray from the path. So important. The spiritual path is not about just removing all of these external factors. The spiritual path is about developing that awareness to recognize them and then having the inner strength to make sure that you don't get controlled by them. See, tell me something. I will again go back to relationships, because that is where these teachings, they become apparent. let us say you love somebody, and or you think you love somebody, and then that person says something critical. What happens immediately? You think about it. Has it happened to you that you think you love somebody, but then that person said something critical? No, did you not? What did you not do? Did you never love anybody, or you loved somebody and they never said anything critical? Everybody's, yeah, we have one brave soldier here, but otherwise everybody's, ego is protecting. It's my overdrive pe. So, but what happens is, the moment they say something critical, your dveṣa kicks in. And then you have this urge to withdraw. Or you want to punish with silence, isn't it? I will punish with silence. I will build a wall now. So this is all dveṣa, taking control. That is Krishna's message. Or the opposite. Somebody praises us. The moment somebody praises us, rāga kicks in. And when rāga kicks in, what happens? We want more. We want more and more. But then the next time they don't praise, disappointment. See how this mechanism works? Like, let us say you love somebody and they don't say anything nice to you. It's okay. I mean, you are still enjoying the ride. But they say something nice to you. Now you like it. The rāga kicks in. But the next day they don't say something more nice. Now you are upset. But the day before yesterday, they did not say something nice. You were not upset. When were you upset? When they first say something nice, you got attached to it. And then the next day you did not get that same sweets. Then now you are upset. You see how this rāga and dveṣa, the games they play. And this is Krishna's message. Krishna is saying, be aware of this. If you're not aware, it impacts every aspect of our life. Because what happens when you are aware? When you are aware, at least your responses will not be controlled by those forces. Your responses will be controlled more by your viveka, your discrimination. And then comes the statement that I have written here is, once we are continuously having the habit of being mindful, being aware, then you will develop the capacity to respond from awareness rather than responding from habit. 99% of the time, for any situation, our response comes based on our habit, not based on our awareness. And all Krishna is saying is, get into a mindset of awareness now. And then now comes the final verse of this set, 3.35. Here Krishna is delivering one of the most well-known and one of the most misunderstood slokas in the Bhagavad Gita. This is where, this very popular, it's a very popular sloka. He says, Shreyan swadharmo viguṇaḥ, where it means better is one's own dharma even if performed imperfectly. Paradharmat svanushthitat, he says, than another dharma perfectly performed. He goes further. Swadharma nidanam shreyah, he says, even death while performing your own dharma is better. Paradharmo bhayavaha, for another's dharma is fraught with fear. It's a powerful teaching, and as I said, it's kind of misunderstood many times. Here Krishna is exposing one of the deepest sources of human suffering. Usually in a modern philosophy and modern psychology, they will tell you that comparing ourselves to others and then trying to become what you are not, that pretty much is a recipe for a life of disappointment, hurt, fear. Don't we do that? Like a householder, when he looks at a sannyasi, he will say, oh, that sannyasi's life is so much better than mine. Maybe why did I get into this burden, all this household, all of that janjat. But a sannyasi is looking at a householder and saying, why am I suffering? Begging for food and all of that. Look at that person, he's got a wife and kids and he's having a good time. Like just like that person who is in... I personally have this experience when many years ago when I used to be in Pune. I had a very affluent business friend. He had a shop, a showroom and all. And he would all the time be telling me, dude, can you switch places with me? He would always make it look like I'm having a great life. He would say, dude, all you do is you go somewhere, you do some work and you come back home. Electricity, air conditioning, labor, taxation, somebody else is taking care. And I used to say, dude, give me your shop, give me your showroom, I would love to be my own king. Like, I don't want to work for somebody. And he would say, you have no idea. Like, this business you think is great, but it's full of headache. And so this is the problem. The problem is in modern language, they use this very, very popular term, grass is always green on the other side. But what is the true meaning behind that is we are never happy where we are. We are never happy with what we are. That is what Krishna is talking in terms of swadharma and paradharma. And he says that if you try to be what you are not, then that path will be full of fear. The danger is real. Because why? When you try to be somebody else, then you are acting against your own inner nature. For example, there are people who faint when they see blood. I know such people. So their swadharma, their inner nature is aligned more towards peaceful operations. Like they can be teachers or preachers or artists, or there are a million things they can do. But they are inspired by the glory that the soldiers get. Whenever a soldier goes to war, everybody salutes, everybody is praising them. So they get tempted. No, they want to become a soldier. What happens if such a guy becomes a soldier? Every day of his life is full of fear. Every day of his life is anxiety, stress. Whereas a guy who really has an inner nature of being a warrior, he will be absolutely enjoying his job as a soldier. So that is why if you see people who are miserable at work, 99% of the time it is because they are trying to do something that their inner nature is not aligned with. It's a very important teaching. It is very rarely the work itself that causes fatigue or that causes all the pain. It is misalignment with your inner nature that causes all of that. That is why in modern days, they fashionably say that if you love what you do, then you will never have to go to work, because that will never feel like work for you. So think about it. It's a very, very important message and very practical also. So Krishna's teaching is that, if I have to simplify it, it is like, okay, let me give an example. Like, has anybody seen a rice field where you plant rice? Okay, one person has seen, 2, 3. Okay, at least a few of you seen. So I grew up, when I was very young, when I was a child, I grew up near those rice fields. That's why this example is important to me. Is that field has to be like very wet. Where they plant rice, it's very wet. It's soaking wet, that field. But that is where a rice grows. But have you seen where a cactus grows? The exact opposite. Completely dry, hot and dry. Now what happens if a cactus seed tries to grow in a rice field? Or what happens if a grain of rice tries to sprout in a desert? See, the goal of both the seeds is to sprout. But they have to sprout from their own field. The field that is aligned with their inner nature. If you put a cactus seed in a rice field, it will just rot. If you put a rice grain in a desert, it will just dry out and die. So the rice has to grow in a rice field. cactus has to grow in a desert. So that is Krishna's message here. Swadharma versus paradharma. The end goal is you have to evolve through karma yoga. You have to reach something higher. That is common. But from where you want to sprout is where he is saying. Does it make sense, or is there any questions here? I just want to make sure that these teachings are sinking in. It's very important. That's the fundamental difference between just reading and having somebody teach, is that at that instance, if there is a question, if there is a doubt, that can be clarified. Okay, Chitraji, you had a question?
Yes, Guruji, Hare Krishna. So, there are so many people around us that we see that are in professions that they don't like. So they cannot just drop it and, just say that this is not aligning with my Swadharma. So, in that case, just like being in a place of joy and practicing the rightful actions with detachment, with Ananya Chintan, is what I feel, and that grace will always guide them in the right direction eventually, right?
Yes, you're right. I mean, practically the message is not everybody should drop their jobs if it is not aligned. The point is, at least from the point you hear this teaching, from the point you internalize this teaching, can your choices be different? Okay, that is the first part. The second part is, can you now become more mindfully aware? Like you think you are feeling miserable because you have to commute, because you have to work long hours, because your manager is a bad person, because your colleagues are not good. But then if you are very mindfully aware, you will realize that the root cause of all your agony is you don't feel aligned. That awareness itself goes a long way in changing how you feel about the situation. That is the message here. And of course, from that point onwards, Krishna's teachings are all going to help. Non-attachment and not being attached to the fruits and all of that. And eventually you will realize that, see, even in dharma we spoke, right? There is a small dharma, there is a big dharma, you remember? Do you remember that? Where what is our highest dharma? Our highest dharma is realization and going towards God. A material dharma, yes, it is required, it's a means, not an end. So all of this will, with some awareness, you will be able to internalize all of these teachings and be less disturbed even when you have to do something that you don't like doing, is the whole message. So let us see how his teachings are. First, he begins by telling what happens when we refuse to receive wisdom with open heart. That is where he started. Then he acknowledges that even the wise people, they get pulled by all of these other forces that they may not even be aware of. And you cannot forcefully change your inner nature. Then he said that rāga and dveṣa, they are the real enemies, because they are the ones that keep us running. They are pulling us. And finally, he is giving us the ground to stand on and sprout from. He is saying that is your swadharma. He is saying when you have to grow through karma yoga, the most important thing is, can you align with your inner nature? So does it sound abstract? Does it sound abstract and very philosophical? I think it's very practical. So he's asking us to become aware of rāga and dveṣa. And he's asking us to stick to our own swadharma, even if we think we are not advancing. So he has given a very honest map. In my opinion, this is a map of how to succeed. And I think if we follow this, it's going to be a very liberative experience. Okay, so with this, I'm going to have one final opportunity for any questions. Does it open any question in anybody's mind? Or does anybody feel like, there is one very powerful question, but yes, Deepaji?
it's with regards to swadharma. Like sometimes you're so deluded or you're so overwhelmed with worldly things. I mean, it's in continuation with what Chitra was saying. Rather than paradharma, because of the situation, circumstances, you may not be able to identify your swadharma, or you are so deluded. You get what I'm trying to say? It's like, you want to be aligned to your inner nature, you may not be able to align it. Mine is more
Okay.
towards swadharma rather than paradharma. How do
Yes,
you?
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get the what is.
So
You
no,
said yeah.
what I'm trying to say is like, yes, you have to be aligned with your inner nature, but then because of delusions or because of worldly influences, you are away from your swadharma. How do you get back to your swadharma? How do you identify your swadharma? That's what I'm trying to say.
So you are saying that what? See, these are two different things. That what you
Or
are
maybe I'm
having to
mixing up
do.
topics. Yeah.
Yes, you're not mixing topics. It is you are mixing a cause, symptoms, and cause. So you are saying in today's world, we don't always control what we are having to do. That is one part. That is kind of, I would say, the symptom. The symptom is you are doing something that you didn't have control over. But are you feeling miserable while doing that?
No.
The question that there is the teaching. The teaching says if you are feeling miserable, then you need to understand the cause. See, there are people who may be a humble janitor, but they are blissful, they are happy being a janitor. There are people who may be a big time banker, but they are miserable. So the question here Krishna is asking is, are you mindfully aware that when you are miserable, are you aware that it is because the main reason is you are not aligned with your inner nature? That is the question. Because if you're not aware, you will be trying to fix all the wrong problems. The problems that are not that is why some people, they cannot stay in a job for more than a few months or a year or something. They will keep jumping. They will keep jumping. They will keep jumping. Because they think the problem is the location. They think the problem is the boss. They think the problem is the co-worker or this or that. But they are not aware. So they don't realize that the problem is they're not aligned with their inner nature. And until they're even aware of that, the anxiety, the fear, the miserableness will continue. That is Krishna's message. But the real question that you should be asking me is, if Krishna is saying that your inner nature is a big force, the inner nature, pushes you here and there, the real question that you should be asking me is, does it mean that my inner nature can never change? Or does it mean that I am condemned? That if my inner nature is a particular way, does it mean that is set in stone now? That should be in my opinion, the bigger question. Does it make sense, Deepaji?
Yes. Yeah, it does.
So in 3.35, Krishna is not saying that whatever your inner nature, whatever your tendencies, just keep doing it. That is not what Krishna is saying. Because then the entire Bhagavad Gita teaching will collapse, right? Because the whole Bhagavad Gita is about inner transformation. The Bhagavad Gita is about transforming our inner nature. The teaching Krishna is saying is, you cannot force. You cannot force, but you can transform. That is the key message. So eventually we need to have self-transformation, and your inner nature definitely will transform, has to transform. So you have to go from tamas to rajas to sattva, and then eventually you have to overcome sattva also. See, for example, somebody whose inner nature is a warrior, they are still in rajas. But if they move from rajas to sattva, then that inner nature automatically changes. That is the idea. Yes, Simranji, you had a question?
Yeah, Guruji, I was feeling, what if you enjoy someone else's dharma, like paradharma? What if you feel that you're aligned towards someone else's paradharma, like someone else's dharma or duty.
Well,
Like you
if
feel
you,
comfortable in it.
I mean, then that is not paradharma, then probably that is your dharma, swadharma. That means now whatever you are doing is your paradharma. like if you always, like maybe you are a, whatever, like let's say you are a banker, but you always feel pulled or aligned with teaching, then maybe the banker is your paradharma. Maybe teaching is your real swadharma. So that is something that Krishna asks us to be internally aware of. Yes, by all means, if you feel like you are aligned with teaching, go and do teaching. The warning is, just because you think the teacher gets a lot of respect, the teacher's life seems to be good, better than mine, so let me also go and teach. That is Krishna's warning. He's saying, don't try to do that. So, yes, you have to spend time, ask yourself, sit with yourself. Once you understand what your alignment is, follow that by all means. Excellent questions. Okay, so I was thinking that whoever is busy, whoever wants to drop, feel free to drop. But I was thinking that before wrapping up, today we can have a very small little kirtan, bhajan, just to feel our love for Krishna. If you're all, I'll give you maybe a minute to settle down, minute or two, and be ready. And then we will start a small, Kalpana will just sing 1 or 2 paragraphs. Yeah, I just want to make sure you are all comfortable if you want to straighten up or whatever. I know it's been an hour, more than an hour, that we are all sitting here. So Kalpana will sing. We will keep it short. We are not trying to make a long bhajan or something. It's short. The whole concept is, let's get into the mindset of bhakti quickly.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So it's the Krishna Ashtakam. Vasudevasutam devam kamsachanuramardanam devaki paramanandam krishnam vande jagadgurum athasi pushpasankasam हारनूपुरशोभितम् रत्नकङ्गणकेयूरं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् कुटिलालकसंयुक्तं पूर्णचन्द्रनिभाननम् विलसत्कुण्डलं धरं देवं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. So basically the mindset, what we are saying is, I worship Lord Krishna, the divine son of Vasudeva, who killed the demons Kansa and Chanura, who is the source of ultimate joy for his mother Devaki, and who serves as the supreme spiritual teacher for the entire universe. So with these intentions and blessings of the countless gurus who have appeared to bless us all, let us close today's session and let us spend the rest of the day or rest of the evening in a mindset of gratitude and devotion. Hare Krishna. I can also open the floor if anybody has anything to add.
Hare Krishna, this is Priti.
Hare Krishna, Priti.
What a beautiful topic today. I mean, I never realized this, but it's so true. Thank you. This is an excellent topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Priti ji. Really appreciate the kind words. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
I
Solu.
want to,
Yes,
I
yes.
want to put the things in a mathematical equation. If you can help me where I'm going wrong. Yeah.
Sure. Why do you assume you're wrong even before you start?
Okay. Samskar plus guna is equal to inner nature.
Mm-hmm.
The inner nature arrow can be transformed or to align with the right things as per in order to get the success or whatever is the goal of
Correct. Correct. Perfect.
As he said, it is fantabulous. No words, no words. I think people who want the psychological help, there are a lot of things that Gita can do, but this is also one of the things. Major thing is alignment, and there is no alignment, a lot of problems occur, whether it's married life, profession, or any field. So this is like crux of so many problems, which has been pointed out so beautifully.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's all Krishna. All glories to Krishna. He's such a master psychologist and a master strategist and a master statesman. It's beyond compare. And we just need to be open and, have faith in his teachings. And his teachings have so much meaning and depth. We will keep unraveling it. And I really look forward, Smita ji, that you stay with us throughout till we complete the Bhagavad Gita, and you will really enjoy all the
I
lessons.
want to. Yes, thank you so much. I would wish to.
Best wishes and blessings. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, if nobody else has any other questions, let's call it a day. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Wish you all a wonderful day.
Do the same.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guruji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Guruji.
Hare Krishna, Ekansh.
Ash will wait.